It sounds like, wasn't it Peter Berger who described our loss of transcendence in the modern world, a world without windows?
Oh,
Was that his phrase?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the signals of transcendence would be like a light shining through the window.
Exactly.
Right, calling us to the world outside.
And I think as more and more people realize that, they realize this secularist conspiracy that the world within the windows is all there is, we've got to shatter it. And of course, that thinking goes all the way back to Plato. You remember his famous parable of the cave, the prisoners who only saw flickering shadows in the wall because of a fire behind them and so on. Outside was the sun. And one of them, who escaped and discovered the sun, went back in, and they thought he was a madman because all they knew was flickering shadows in the wall. And there are many atheists. You remember the famous line in Hamlet, there are more things in life, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. We've got to help many of our fellow citizens in today's world. They can break out of the cave, break out of this world without windows, and come to know the sun, S-U-N and S-O-N.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. We can do another episode on the forthcoming book, but just give us one or two. Well, what are one or two of those signs of transcendence that you, or signals of transcendence that you draw people to?
They're all different for everyone. But let me share I could tell you my wife's, but let me share my favorite one. Do you know the story of W.H. Auden, one of the greatest poets of the 20th century? When he was young, he was an atheist, he was left-wing, radical, and a gay. He fought on the anti-fascist side in the Civil War in Spain, but when World War II started to get close, he came to New York to escape it all, to be able to write as a poet. And you know he followed it all closely. He lived in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. There was no television in those days, so to keep up with what was happening in Europe, you went to the cinema. And every week there was documentary news. And one weekend, he went to the cinema in Yorkville. Unbeknownst to him, most of the people were in a German-speaking part, and America was not in the war, so he was an Englishman, and they were Germans. But the documentary was on the siege of Poland, Hitler's siege of Poland, and Nazi stormtroopers were bayoneting women and children brutally. And of course, the Germans were backing their own people. Kill them, they shouted out in the darkness. Auden, as an atheist, sat there appalled. He said, I needed an absolute to judge Hitler as absolutely wrong. He said, all my upbringing, everything was relative. There are no absolutes. But I knew I couldn't say Hitler was just culturally wrong or relatively wrong, whatever. He was evil, absolutely evil. And Auden said, I'm concertining it somewhat. He said, I left the cinema a seeker after an unconditional absolute and met Jesus. In other words, it was the inconsistency of palpable evil and the impossibility of saying that's only relatively wrong. No, it was absolutely wrong.